in a moment for everybody. And I appreciate you coming on. You come to us via my lifelong friend, Teresa. And I love her. I hope she gets a chance to join us today. So again, thanks for coming on the show. Let's talk about your book.
Well, first of all, I want to say, Pete, thank you so much. I am so honored to meet you. And I'm so grateful that you would want to talk about the Weaver on your podcast.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it.
What's that?
Let's talk.
So as I was reading The Weaver, there it is, everybody, The Weaver, and I'll put the link up here in a moment. I read this book a lot of the time when I was walking. Now, let me just say this. I've got to get cataract surgery. So for me, reading a book is a little bit more challenging. So the bright light helped a lot. But also walking through nature for me was a great way to consume this book, because I would read a passage, kind of fill up, and then I would enjoy the environment, because there's a lot of, I don't know what you would call it, but there's a lot of presence in the book where it's great to be able to, at least for me, that was the experience. What are your thoughts about how I enjoyed your book? I'm going to bring Teresa in here too, by the way.
Great.
Hi, Teresa.
Hi, Teresa.
Hey, how's it going?
Pete, I think that's the most wonderful reflection that I've had about how to read the book, because of course I love that. I love that you read it in nature. Of course, so much of the book takes place in nature. It describes nature in great detail because I love nature so much, and that's something that I wanted to share with the reader. And I also find that nature puts us in connection with our true, deeper selves, and puts us in this meditative state that allows for those connections. So I absolutely love that you found yourself reading the book in that environment that fostered that kind of reading.
Yeah, it was great. And not by design. It was just partly by necessity for timing, partly because I wanted the sunshine on the pages. Like I said, my cataracts that I haven't got swapped out yet make reading harder. But really, I like to walk and read anyhow. But yeah, it really was neat to be able to walk in these beautiful spaces. Also, in the book, you feature a lot of San Francisco. And if you've been to San Francisco, look, we're talking about it in a positive light because Crissy Field is gorgeous. All these different areas are beautiful. And as I was walking, it also allowed me to teleport over to those spaces as well and enjoy what all of that looks like.
Well, as you might know, I grew up in San Francisco. So I have a very strong connection to San Francisco. I think also the theme of the book, the protagonist, Joyce Woodland, being in that world, in the tech and scientific research world, is very indicative of the kind of people that you can easily meet in San Francisco. So it was a perfect setting for the story. And as you also are aware, San Francisco is surrounded by beautiful nature, forests and the ocean and the bay. So it was a really wonderful way to juxtapose the experience of the city to the experience in nature that brought Joyce to connect to that deep side of herself.
I got to get you out of the way and bring Teresa in. Hi, Teresa.
Hey, how's it going, Pete? Do you love Allona or what? Doesn't she just have such great energy and such a fantastic story?
Yes, I really enjoyed the book. And this is not the kind of book I normally read, like it's not theory of war or any other things. So to read something that I'll just say was a little more feminine, a little softer, for me is always a good thing, because it pushes me to be a better reader, better person kind of thing. Because it's easy to read the things you're comfortable with, even if they're hard things to read and comprehend. And I really found a lot of value in that. What value did you find as you read Allona's book?
So I, as you know, I'm super busy. To me, busy is a 4-letter word. And this was before, we decided to publish Allona's book, and she gave me a copy, and I was about to travel. I was going to the Bahamas for a work conference, and I just had this book with me, and I started reading it. I started reading it before I left. I was like, I'm going to read this on the plane. And what I found that for me, as somebody who just has so many things going all at the same time, it was a reminder to slow down and to practice what Joyce teaches or what Joyce learns in the book, which is really set yourself into nature, really take in account of the fact that you're here in the present moment. So while her book really isn't a self-help book in the sense of it's a nonfiction guide, 10 steps to get your life in order. What it is, it's a beautiful narrative that takes people to a place where they get to meet a woman who I think so many women and actually so many people resonate with this woman is working her tail off to accomplish something without thinking about or taking into consideration the absolute present moment. And unfortunately, she is pushed to the point where she falls to the point where she actually has to reconcile, but knowing what she's reconciling with. And for me, that metaphor is so many times we don't want to look in the mirror and take responsibility for our own actions. And Joyce was given an incredible opportunity through her tragedy to learn these lessons with a clean slate, a blank slate. And that is so rare. So what I learned from it was like, okay, what can the Weaver teach me on a daily basis? What can I glean from this beautiful fiction novel that reminds me on a daily basis to go out in nature, pick up a pine cone, drink a cup of tea.
Right.
And that's what Allona's words have given me, which is a true and utter gift. And I'm so grateful that she created this book for the world to experience.
Thank
I know
you.
two people
That's
that
really
are newly retired, and you know, we're talking about life and everything. And my birthday's tomorrow. I'll be 55 years old.
Oh yeah.
And so,
happy birthday.
you know, we've entered those of us who are 55 or older have entered the time of life where you are looking ahead and going, I only have so much time left to do these things that I want to do, that I've dreamt of doing my whole life, whether it's travel or write a book or whatever it is. And both of these people that I know, and I've known these people for decades, and I'm like, what are you going to do next? And they're like, oh, you know, I'm not going to get me a job. Why? Like, you've retired, you've done it. You've reached the point where now you get to do these other things that you've been putting off. And it was hard to get either of them. These guys are independent conversations. It was hard to get either of them to lighten the fuck up and try to figure out what you could do next. And I said to both of them, we were at a time of life where either of us could drop dead from a heart attack right now.
Right.
You just don't know. You don't know how much time you have left. And we certainly can see that, you know, look, you get to 70 pretty reliably, right? But not everybody. And so if you wait too long to do these things, to be present, to focus on these other things, and you're focused on making money or having a job, I'm not saying don't take care of your family, take your obligations, but at some point you really have to lean on the life side of the work-life balance.
Right.
Or you can write a book,
Right.
which is exactly what happened to me. I was on a merry-go-round in my previous, I was an art dealer my entire life. And I was on this merry-go-round of getting on planes, going to see clients, going to see shows, etc. And then COVID happened, and that was the great pause, right? And that's when I got to really settle down and get quiet. And we were all forced to, in some extent, and go out to nature. And that's what this book came out of. When I had the time to do that, I had time to reflect and really go inward and think about the essence, the really important things in my life. And out of those revelations came the desire to share those revelations with other people. And that's how this book came about.
Yeah. And I think that what's great is that you're not putting it in people's faces. You're not saying, okay, this is what you need to do. This is what you need to do. You're saying, take this gift, enjoy Joyce and her journey, pour yourself a cup of tea and relax and be present. And I remember I was on the beach in the Bahamas and I sent you a photo of me reading this book going, this is where I need to be, knowing that there was no other place that I needed to be except to be on the beach reading this book in the Bahamas, right?
And that's perfect, because that's really, this book is designed to put us all in that meditative, reflective, inner space that allows for those reflections and allows, as we read the book, we go along with Joyce's, the protagonist's adventure as she discovers herself. And we get to reflect about these qualities in ourselves, like hope, like intuition. We get to reconnect with different kinds of memories of ourselves. And ultimately, through that, like you said, Teresa, it's not a 7-step book, but it is in a way, because there is a 7-step to happiness, a process ingrained in the book, but in a really subtle way, in a way that allows us to experience it along with the heroine of the book.
Yes. And you did a great job. And I just love your prose. And, people are like, oh, I'm going to write a book. And I'm like, that's not what it has. That's not, it's deeper than that. You have to have a deeper connection with who your characters are. And you did that. You did a great job of that.
Well, I think we all know Joyce, right?
Yeah.
We all know people who are so entrenched in their careers, in the success, in the traffics of the world. And there's nothing wrong with it, except sometimes we realize that the price that we pay for those things is a lot greater than we signed up for. And this gives another path. We can be successful, we can be proactive, and we can do many things to help the world and to help ourselves and still be in that space of who we truly are.
Yeah, there's many moments in the book where I was like, don't make that decision, Joyce. Don't do that.
I've heard that so many times.
I'm like, don't.
And I love that. I love it when people tell me that, because it really feels like we identify with her so closely that we get upset about the decisions she makes.
That identity is huge. It really is, because it does inform that we need to do that kind of advocacy for ourselves. Don't make this decision, whatever it is, right? And I'm not saying don't mind your obligations, but also wedge out some space for the other things, because we all could do a better job of that. Also, being that friend for somebody else, like I was with my buddies the other day. Maybe they didn't hear me this time, but every time I talk to them, I'm going to ask them how they're doing at being retired and what they're working on, and getting to do something that's more of a balanced creation thing. So it was great. And you do root for Joyce's choices to be, it gets at what the book is getting after and trying to put that into place. How hard was it for you to wrestle that and get that into a storyline?
The way this book happened to me, it was really a gift. I was gifted the whole story from the get-go. I basically, after setting the intention of wanting to share something with the world, probably in the form of writing, I woke up in the middle of the night with the entire story. And I knew every detail of it. It's kind of a strange thought, because the whole story was condensed in one thought, kind of like the idea of a DNA, how the DNA holds the coding of your entire body. It was like that. It was just this fraction, but I knew everything already. And so it was just a matter, in that moment, I knew I was given a gift, because I'd asked the universe to be able to do that, and it came. So I wanted to honor that gift. And every day I would sit down, I would go into that inner space, which I reached through my own meditation practice, and I would write out of that space. So very much like Joyce's story, where she found her true path. She didn't retire. She didn't stop working. She didn't become apathetic. She was, at the end, and spoiler alert, sorry, she's very much involved in life, and she works very hard, but she works from a different place. She works from a place of love, her self-love, her love for the world, and her desire to share that with others. And that's very much what the process has been like for me. And so it wasn't hard. It was joyous from the beginning to the end, and now sharing it is extremely joyous for me.
I think one of the things, I'm going to have to jump soon, so you guys are going to be able to continue the conversations. But one of the things that I found fascinating about Joyce is that while she was always purpose-driven, the energy and the purposes changed.
Exactly.
And I felt like in the beginning, it was so ego driven that she had to accomplish and she had to prove, where, post, it was more of this settling in to who she truly was in the present moment without worrying about everybody else and how the world was going to her,
And of course, it didn't just happen.
Right.
Let's remember that in the beginning, she was compensating for something, a lack, a really painful experience she had in her past. And we all have experiences in our past that we compensate for, right? Even it might just be high school or whatever, or our families.
Right.
And we do so many things in the desire to overcome these painful or hindrances that we've had in our past. And that's what the place where she was coming from. She was doing great. She was doing great for the world, but she could never overcome that pain from that paradigm. And so she really had to, become a blank slate, as you said, Teresa, and be reborn from another perspective, to go through this transformation of her life, being from a perspective of completeness rather than lack,
right,
or
right,
fracture.
Right.
And that's another thing that the book invites all of us to look at, is look at ourselves and look at how we can reframe our life story in a way that is conducive to the state of well-being, of joy, and of sharing.
And I think right now, with everything that's happening in the world, we need that. And we need to be able to find that presence in ourselves. She was lucky enough to have the Weaver. Many of us don't have that access to the Weaver. So perhaps while I need to jump, I would love for you to speak with Pete about how people can find their own inner Weaver, and how you found yours as well. How does that sound?
Yeah, well, that's exactly what the desire of the book is. It's for all of us to tap into that inner Weaver energy in us, so we can have that as a resource for our lives. So I look forward to
I'm going to kick Teresa out. Then you are going to keep talking. Get out of here, Teresa.
Bye,
Love you. I'll see you later.
Time.
A million thanks. Love you.
Yes, love you guys. Bye.
Take care of your daughter. So great.
All right. Now we got rid of Teresa. We don't got to deal with her questions anymore.
She's great, isn't she?
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. She and I go back a long way, and I just adore her. And that's it. That's all there is to it. So,
and for her to reinvent herself with this publishing house, Liberté.
She's reinvented herself more than Madonna. She just is like, oh, I'm doing this now, and she kills it. Yeah. She is a rock star. And this is a thing that I think goes back to Joyce and these kind of characters that we all play, where we do, like, I look at everything in life as a competition, and so I am going to find my spot, and I'm going to be swinging as hard as I can, right? Which is a lot of times me focused on my ego, and then I relax my ego and I try to get out of the way of it, and I become a more enjoyable person to me. I'm still a taskmaster. On Monday when it's a holiday, I'm still going to be working, over 10 hours, because that's right, what you have to do to run your own business. But I do find that as I get older, there's an elegance in what I do, and there's also a ability to work to try to calm the hell down and enjoy some of these things. But I have to work at it. It's not easy for me just to switch into I'm not going to do anything, or this doesn't matter mode.
Well, it's really a habit that we develop, right? Like anything else. But I really get what you're talking about. I mean, especially I think being a guy and the testosterone effect of feeling competitive. Sure. And Joyce's husband in the beginning of the story is very much like that. He is very competition driven. So that's an interesting reflection for all of you guys out there. And he undergoes his own transformation also, because he also connects to the reason that he is so driven. Part of it is his inability to trust in his wife's love. He has a great relationship with Joyce, but a part of him feels that he has to perform in order to earn that love. And in his transformation, he comes to a place of trust in that relationship, and their relationship transforms, and they become true partners. So they're all working very hard. They're all creating a whole new world.
Yeah.
But they are coming to it from a different perspective.
part of me wants you to find either another author or you put on a different hat and write the other half of this book, because his perspective, like when you write, like towards the end, like, like their love has changed. I want to talk about love too. Let's get back to that in a second. But I would love to see his interpretation of what is going on and what that feels like. And then how does he end up in what it seems to be the same place in their relationship where they're more intertwined, is guessing what I would say. So, what are your thoughts on that kind of a concept?
I love that concept. And, so many people have come to me after reading the book and are begging me to write a sequel and continue the story or another aspect of the story, because we all want more of the weaver. We want more of that energy that we find ourselves in when we read the book. Right. And I really wanted to write a sequel, and I probably will. The way these books come to me is they're like a download. And so I had every intention to continue writing about the weaver when I had a download of another story.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, but that's all right.
Yeah, that's all right. I had to honor that. At first I resisted it, but it just would not leave me alone. So I honored it, and I wrote a completely different subject, but still with that spiritual connected message throughout the book. I would love to write about Will's perspective. And I think that in a way we are so focused about Joyce and her transformation. We kind of put Will aside because he experienced a lot in this situation. He went through his own struggles and came out the other way by kind of vicariously experiencing Joyce's transformation. But he's still a really important character in the story, and his involvement in the changing perspective from that thriving, competitive, egocentric activity to coming to a place where there's trust and love, and there's a desire to share and a desire to build something truly as partners with his wife, not just in a way that, I'm going to prove to you that I'm worthy of you, but let's be partners in this creation.
When you share a life with someone, you go through different echelons. Sometimes you repeat the echelons. And so when we look at Joyce and Will and how they live their lives, we see Joyce's perception of what Will's experience is. But that might be the next journey for her as well. And look, I'm just saying, I'm talking about Joyce because she's the protagonist, but maybe she still has more growth, because you advance yourself, and this is in general life, you advance yourself down your path of life, and you get better at certain things. And sometimes you learn something, but you have to learn it 5, 6, 7, 10 times before you maybe master it, right? But I can see a thing where, like, he's like, oh, thank God, she finally lightened up. She finally has space to do, and it's not like a big revelation. Like, he's been waiting for her to catch up, right? Or some kind of form of that, where they're simpatico for this time, and then 6 months later, something else happened, it changes, or whatever it's going to be. But there's that pacing where you're trying to always see and be with each other, but life is just constantly doing these things. Does that make sense at all, what I'm saying?
You're touching on one of the core subjects of this book. It is a love story. It's an adventure. It's a spiritual transformation, but there's also a core story there that's a love story, and it's very much about the different phases of how the love continues and develops over time. And I think that they find themselves in a beautiful place at the end, where they are true partners. They have a common mission, a common vision for their lives. He's not trying to catch up with her anymore, or waiting for her, or fawning for her as he was in the beginning. And that really happens through his ability to trust in love. And I think trust is such a key component, such a key experience for all of us to be able to tap into, and to be able to see that through these protagonists, help us tap into that in ourselves, but of course, growth is growth. As long as we live, we grow. And I could definitely expand on Will's experience. This has been the story of Joyce. So that's what I focused on.
Right. the kinds of love, right? This is me getting back into love. We talk like we don't really talk about like the Greek forms, agape, and all these different kinds of love. But I would say that that's even limiting too, because there's old love, there's seasoned love, there's infatuation, there's all these different things. And as you go down through this path of love, things that you were desperate for early on in your relationship or middle relationship are no longer important, because there's a different form of love that really bonds you together. And you in my mind, you just kind of layer them on like paint on a wall, and it's all part of this wall. You can't tell the wall's any wider, but over 30 years, oh my gosh, it was wallpaper that one era. We just painted over that with other, and so when I think about love, I think about it in those regards, like being able to see, appreciate, and enhance those different eras and types of love. Again, am I being crazy here? What do you think?
I love that you want to talk about love.
I love love.
That's the last thing I expected on this podcast, but I think it's wonderful. It's so surprising to me, the kind of reflections I get from guys who read the book. I mean, some of the best comments have come from men. And we all who experience love, or who want to experience more of love, it all starts with self-love, right?
Okay.
And that's the beauty of the experience that Joyce undergoes when she wakes up in the cabin, not knowing who she is, not knowing, completely forgotten her past, next to this loving being who is the Weaver woman, who helps her connect to her own deepest sense of love to herself and her sense of connection to everything else. And once that transformation happens for her, and she reunites with her husband, she's able to bring that quality into the relationship. So I would say that all love relationships, whatever form they take, husband and wife, man and woman, with our children, with whoever we experience love with, start with our own self-love. And that's really what the story is about. Her ability to connect to who she truly is and to love that person and not to escape from that person.
What did Joyce love when she's coming down the stairs in the very first chapter? What did she love at that point?
I think she had a really hard time to connect to the deepest love in herself, because she was so busy compensating the loss of the one person who she deeply loved, who was her mother, who passed away. So her whole life, even though she was married, happily married, she loved her husband to the extent that she believed she could love at that point. She loved her work. She loved humanity. She wanted to contribute. She was a high-level scientist who wanted to contribute to humanity. So there was definitely love there. But as long as that love was grounded in her need to compensate for the loss of love, you see, she was coming from a place where she could not really connect to her deepest source of love and the deepest love that she could feel from the universe towards herself. She was running on empty.
But she had that mantra of she has everything. She has everything. I've got everything. Everything I do, right? So was that true? And were the things that she had not real for her and what she needed to be? Or help me understand. Yeah.
She was always afraid to lose it, right? So it was never a feeling of completeness. It was always a feeling of lack. And Will was always afraid to lose it. He felt that if he slowed down, he could not sustain that level of life that they were experiencing. So they had everything in terms of material possessions. They had everything in terms of what life should look like. But they didn't really have themselves.
Yeah. No, that's great. The not having yourself, and in some ways, because this is the thing, like when you read the book and you contemplate it a little by little, there's a lot of depth in the book. And so you can think about Joyce and, what she's thinking about, what she comes down. This is like right in the very beginning of the book, when she's thinking about, and I wondered, you often see this in social media where like, who's pitching who? Are you pitching me about how great your life is because you don't think your life is great? You're trying to show us, or are you, truly like happy with all these things. Sometimes if you protest too much, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I did get a sense of that with Joyce. I'm like, right away, I'm like, oh my gosh, this lady is a little bit too busy. And she's trying to remind herself of something that I don't think she really believes.
Yeah. And when she's writing and keeps the idea of 40 keeps coming back because she's about to turn 40 or I just turned 40. And the
Right.
fear in that, the time is running out. So there's you notice the book is in 3 parts. So the first part is entitled Thriving. And there's a lot of, it's very condensed. There's a lot of action. There's a lot of reference to time and age and all these constricting thoughts, right? And then in the second part, the part where she meets the Weaver woman who guides her through her transformation, is called Awakening, where she awakens to who she truly is. And that part of the book has absolutely no reference to time. It's the time slows down. And we find ourselves as we engage with her on her journey that our time slows down. And we find ourselves in this meditative state as you so beautifully experienced in your journeys in nature. As we go along her adventure, and we're able to connect to those aspects of ourself that she discovers in herself, which is her true nature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to talk to a totally different version of you, Allona. You were an art dealer, or maybe you are still an art dealer.
Still,
If I am a very talented painter or a very talented writer, like you are, it doesn't mean that I am going to have success. And it might be that the thing that I get to do that I'm great at, I end up hating because I'm driven by success. I meet so many people through the show that, whether they're in show business is a good example. So, you have this dream of becoming this thing, illustrator, singer, voiceover actor, whatever, and then you become that thing. And then because you're good at it, you become in demand and you're getting the financial reward, maybe some of the, peer awards or whatever it is. And then you realize this thing owns you because you can't dare say no to a project, right? And so now, like actors, I like to ask, if you became a person who was just, and I'm saying just on a soap opera, a daytime drama, or you were a person who works nonstop in procedurals, you're on CSI, you're on, this show, you're on that show, you have a fantastic life. You are acting professionally, you're making a lot of money, but the expression that you get to put forward, whether it's in a book, on a piece of paper, or on a TV show, wherever it is, it's limited. And if you say no, if you opt out, you may never get it back. But all actors, all painters have to go through this process where they do learn what no is like for them. And again, I'm asking you, these are really esoteric things, but I think you'll have something to say about this. So just because you write something, just because you get a download from wherever, God, the universe, whatever it's going to be, do you get to own the outcome of the success of the book in your case?
Oh, you're asking for me?
Yes, I'm asking for you. And then talk in general if you want to.
Yeah, well, no, I'm happy to respond exactly to your question about me. I wasn't sure if you asked me about our artists in general. For me, I really feel truly that this was a gift from the universe.
Yeah.
And so I don't feel attached to it in a way that this is me, this is mine. My true deep desire is to share it with as many people as possible, and for the book. I mean, the most wonderful thing you could tell me about the book is how it affected your life in a positive way. And I hear that all the time from people. And that is just the greatest gift I can receive from writing that book. Just one person telling me that makes the world of joy for me. So
there's the link.
That's it. I'm not attached to the outcome. My desire, my deepest wish is to share it with as many people as possible, in however that form that takes place, and for it to really have an impact, a positive impact for people's lives and the world.
But you do owe the gift, the idea. This is just Pete's supposition here. You do owe the book, the idea, the gift, the work, that goes into selling the book. And so let's say you're like, I'm going to take 12 months and I'm going to sell the shit out of this book. And then that's going to be when that idea is done. And if I sold 25 copies or 25 million copies, it doesn't really matter because this is a gift. I've done how do you know what you're obligated to do to respect the gift? And on the business side.
That's exactly what I'm grappling with, because I do feel a responsibility that once you're given such a tremendous gift to want to share it and to honor it with being able to share it with other people and many people. So I'm figuring this out as I go along. I'm not a publisher. This is my first book. And so this is definitely a learning curve for me. And I also have trust that the right people like yourself will come along and help with that journey, because I think there's a lot of help, both from the universe and from people who want to promote the ideas in this book. That it will definitely be a cooperation, a synergy. I cannot do it all along. And I am so grateful for Teresa for coming along and recognizing something in the book that resonated with her and that made her to go along in that journey of promoting this book.
Let's talk about Teresa for a second since she's not here.
Oh, yeah. Let's do it.
She's a new publisher, right? This is not what she does. You and I both know, like I said, she reinvents like Madonna. Like she's always on it and always nails it. How do you have the trust that she will know what to do to get this done for you?
I have trust in general. I just trust in the journey. And when I met Teresa, we had so much synergy. And there were little synchronistic similarities in our journey that were so wow, so surprising that I had to pause and say, wait a minute, I need to pay attention here. There's just too much synergy here to not pay attention and not want to figure out if this is a good fit or not. And so I trust Teresa on a personal level. I know that she has been successful in the past. And so I trust that she will continue to be successful throughout her life, just like, I've experienced success in my other, areas of domain. And I trust that in my own ability to create success.
Yeah, no, that's great. I want to talk about trust a little bit, but I want to go back to that original question I asked you a few minutes ago. And now let's talk, because artists, right? People who run galleries, you deal with the artists. And so, their job is to put charcoal on paper, paint, oil on canvas, whatever it is, right? And they have to be, if you're a performer and you sing, if you're an author and you write, you have to be saleswoman of the year every damn year for your music, for your book, for your artistry, right? Now, you may find an agent like yourself and like, hey, I've gotten to the gallery, but you have your own responsibility to the gallery and to the audience that you're curating. And maybe this person isn't doing the right. So there's this whole exchange where, again, when does the art move aside for artists? Like if you're talking to artists and you're like, hey, you're wonderful, but there's these other things that we have to do. You have to sit down with these people that you don't want to talk to because these swells have the money that are going to drive sale, whatever those things are. How do you manage that in the bigger world, not your world in terms of your art, but everybody else's art?
So what's the question, Pete?
Well, it's the same thought. Like, what do they owe to their art, what do they owe to the business side of their art, right? How do you teach people about balance? If you paint something and it's wonderful and no one recognizes it, you're not going to be the first artist to experience that. There are so many artists in general, all arts, who do amazing things, but they go largely unnoticed for whatever reason. And you have to manage, is your art good enough? Why isn't it resonating? And you have to think on the business side, because just because you have a gift doesn't mean that you get to have success.
Well, it's really about creating synergies with other people, isn't it? And I always had the sense that there's a natural selection. Okay. If you resonate with certain people, certain type of people, they will come to you. Because don't forget, the world is looking for us artists too, right? The world wants this book. People want to read this book. They just don't know it's out there. They don't know it exists, but they're looking for it. Just like it's the same with art. is when I had kind of the other role, right? Now I'm the artist. Before I was the gatekeeper and being a gallerist. And I was looking for the artist. I was looking for that gem. I extended a great amount of energy to find those really talented artists that had something to say. And so that's really important to keep in perspective, because here we are, especially as an author, you work alone in your little corner. You're in your world, you're in your thoughts, and you have no idea how the world would respond to it. But remembering that if I want this book to exist, somebody else wants to read it, is a way to connect with the outer world. And I get that my response is maybe not really practical, but I think everything we do comes from that sense. Ultimately starts with a sense of ourselves, who we are, and how we act in the world, and how the world responds to us.
Yeah. I mean, that's great when you think about all of these things that have to happen to make something exist, and then you have to serve all these different masters to increase the value of that gift and to respect it, right? And so, like for example, I know that if I write a review for your book on Amazon, which by the way everybody should do, go write reviews for books.
Please.
The engineers have decided that is a hallmark of a good book, and so if you write reviews, you're helping the author. You're putting just a tiny little chip in their book to say thanks and let other people see that. That is so like the antithesis of how art is supposed to be discovered. It's supposed to be someone like you who's like, oh my gosh, you're wonderful. And you present their art and people's minds are blown and they buy it. But so much of it is like, are you even allowed to exist on this platform? Like we're on YouTube right now, one of the many places this show is going out to. And I can see when like I publish something, it goes straight up, right? Gets a lot of hits and then boop, flatlines because YouTube no longer finds it valuable. And I'm like, hey, fuckers, get out of the way.
Well, I had that experience too when the book first released. It went up to become a bestseller on Amazon in different categories, and I was like, "Yay, I'm a bestseller overnight!" And and then it flattens out unless you keep feeding the machine to promote it. But of course, you need help in that domain. I need help in that domain because I can't be spending all my time writing books and then figuring out how to promote those books. So thank you, Pete. Thank you for playing on my team.
Well, I put all the keywords in there. I put your name in there. All
and
the
we
things
need word of mouth. We need people who love the book to tell their friends that they love the book because they're hopefully, feeling that they're contributing to their friends' well-being by sharing the book. Yeah.
You can't say this, so I'll say it for you. If you know Allona and you know that she's written a book, you should buy 5 of them. Just buy 5 of them because you want to support your friend. And so buy 5 of her book and give it to your friends or just throw them in the fireplace. Who cares? But buy them so that so she gets some success. If our friends and family supported artistic endeavors,
I love you for that. Thank you, Pete.
Look, you can't say that, right? You have to say, "Oh no, that's not what I want for my friends." But the reality is
why can't I say that? I'm shy that I wouldn't say that. But you know what I'm remembering? I was watching Oprah's interview of Michelle Obama, and Oprah very proudly told Michelle, "I bought 27 of your books to give to friends over Christmas." And Michelle looks at her and says, "Only 27?"
That's right.
So
that's right.
Only 5.
I'm the same.
Good for her,
Yeah.
So why should you be shy about wanting to promote yourself? I love myself. I love the book. I want people to participate in what I create.
I love these kind of moments because there's a lot of versions of this where again, like we're trying to learn how to balance art and business. And so there's a person that I have had on the show, and that person works in the music side of the movie business. And that person was sent files for a given movie. And they said, "What do you think? How do you contribute to this?" And the musician said, "There's nothing. It's perfect. I wouldn't change a thing." And his point of the story was to talk about when you come across something great and what his voice would be. And I was like, "Yeah, did you send an invoice for the time that you spent?" And he's like, "No, I didn't do anything." And I'm like, "Oh, you did." You did. And we lose sight of the fact that there is value in a lot of the things that we do. Like you and I are talking today. There's value here. And I don't want you to write me a check, and I'm not going to write you a check about this stuff. But when we bring artistic value to someone, even if it's say, I wouldn't change a thing, those notes are immensely valuable, and so there is an exchange of value. We're just bad at realizing it and understanding that it's there or doing something about it.
Mm-hmm. I think it's also, it's a matter of our motivation too. Look, writing a book is probably the hardest thing I've ever done. It's the truest thing I've ever done. Yeah. And it's the thing that I've made the least money doing anything I've ever done. But the hope is, it's almost like it's stronger than you. You're doing it because you love it. You're doing it because I'm doing it because it's my self-expression. And I'm doing it because I'm compelled to share that with the world. And then operating on the trust that it will become successful and it will be able to feed my life, because the idea is to be able to continue to write and be able to rely on my skills, my time, my talent, my love to make a living. So it's I think anytime you start a project and you're an entrepreneur, you need to have very strong trust in yourself, because you're embarking on a journey that, okay, you might know the rules of play, but you have no idea what to expect at the end of the day.
Talk about what success looks like for a book. Do you have a number? Is it a amount of hours that if I put in 1,000 hours into this thing, it's going to have that level of success, and then we're done. We're on to book next, right? What is success?
Success, I think, happens on many levels, and it's not linear. It's not like I spent a month or 2 or 3 writing this book, and therefore I should sell 10,000 copies. My hope for this book is that it would reach millions of people around the world. This is really my deep desire, is for this book to have impact in as many people's lives as possible, and to maybe impact our culture, our society in some way. And I say that without pretension, because it's not me wanting to impact. It's the values that this book promotes that I want to reach as far and wide as possible. And that the success for me, and sometimes it's just in one person telling me how it impacted their lives. Like yesterday, I met with an artist and she told me how it affected her creation, and that's success. Right. Just that moment is success.
Yeah.
And I want that to multiply and to really expand to as many people as possible.
The grade of my walks when I'm reading your book and contemplating on it, that also is, it's part of the gift that I got that you've created with your book. And so that is great. By the way, this book is called The Weaver. And I always say this, but I hope you guys do it. Buy 2 and buddy read. And I promise you and your friends or your loved ones who you give it to are going to enjoy this book. It's fantastic. The link is, let's see if I can point in the right way. It's right down there. There's the link. It's probably in the remarks, just for sure, in the show notes. The Weaver. That's what you get. And it's by Allona Kagan. So everybody should do that for sure. I want to talk about trust. I know a lot about trust. It was part of what I did when I was doing my spy work abroad.
Part of what? Sorry, you did what?
I worked abroad for the Army, and I collected information. I was a spy. So to do that, you have to create trust, right? And you can't just say that. You have to be bigger than that. Like that's when people like build rapport. I'm like, all right, what does that mean? How do you know when you have it? How do they know when you have it? How do you recognize when they know that you have it? And trust is the same thing, where when you talked about this earlier, like you extend trust out, low risk trust that I'm going to give to you on credit. Let's see if you pay it back. And if you pay it back, you go to the next rung, and then you start to build this relationship. So you extend trust because you and Teresa vibed and it was great. And you're like, oh, this is something I'm going to keep going, and so that's sort of how you accumulate trust. I don't want to get into a whole treatise on trust, but do you think about trust in any way like a system, like a thing that you can create with good intention? Or is trust just for you more like gut and feeling?
I think of trust as one of the fundamental aspects of living life and how we live life. Okay. It is so, in a way, it's so ingrained. Either it is or it is not ingrained, right? It's something that's
Okay.
really inner. And I don't think of it as something that is in a hokey way, like, oh, I'm going to get this person to trust me and therefore I will do X, Y, Z. I think people trust us because we trust ourselves. And we come into the relationship with that deep trust in ourselves, knowing that I have integrity, knowing that I'm not going to hurt anybody in a relationship and I never would want to hurt anybody intentionally. And coming into it with that trust in myself, that's people really sense that it's a real synergy. And so in the way, when I approach a relationship, I approach it with that intuition, is with the trust that I have for myself. And the trust that I have for myself leads me to interactions that are positive because I trust that this interaction will be positive. And so, it's a self-perpetuating kind of creation, life creation. Mm.
I love it.
Yeah.
Totally different question, but a question I love to ask people because a lot of us are slashy. When you go to a party, like let's say you go to a Super Bowl party next month, right? And they're like, "Oh, pleasure to meet you, Allona. What do you do?" What is your answer to that question?
Now I say I'm an author.
Okay.
And I'm only allowing myself to say that because I've written 2 books now. The first one, you don't know if it's a one-off. But when another one comes, and it comes, in the same powerful way, and I'm very proud of, and just, I'm in love with this new book that I wrote as much as I'm in love, with The Weaver. It's like having children. You love them all. They're very different, but you love them all. I can say I'm an author.
Yeah.
And I'm delighted to be able to say that.
Do you ever say I'm a best-selling author? Do you ever say that? Because that's legitimate. You can say that.
No, that feels a little show-offy to me.
Okay, no, but I mean, in the right setting, it might be the right words to say. Like, oh, I'm a best-selling author.
It's on my Instagram profile, but somebody set it up for me.
Yeah, when you say you're an author, it's like when you say you're a comedian or an actor, right? I don't know. I need context. So how do you fill in the context? Like, you can put it on me to say, have you written anything I've read? And you'd be like, no, I write technical manuals about vacuum cleaners. Absolutely a writer, professional. You write things all the time, right? Look, like me, I write quite a bit. I've probably got, I don't know, over 100 essays published out there somewhere, right? I've written academic papers. I am a writer. Yeah. I never say I'm a writer. I never say I'm an essayist. I just go, I do a lot of different things. I don't even know what to say about my work because it's so fractured and crazy all over the place.
Well, it's like putting a definition of on ourselves, right? It's kind of a funny thing. We all do a lot of things, but people expect an answer. And so right now, that's what I do. I write books. Yeah.
And then do you also say you're a gallerist or no?
I used to have an art gallery in Manhattan for many years. I worked as a private art advisor. I've helped individuals build their own private museums. I've had a really very full and satisfying and rich journey in the art world. I still do. I still participate in it, both as a collector and an art dealer in some respect, but a lot less than I used to.
Yeah. Well, listen.
And it's fun. The funny thing is my next book is about an artist and the art world. So I'm bringing a lot of that experience into my writing.
Well, when you're ready, I want you to come back. Are you going to publish through Teresa? No.
I have not decided yet how I'm going. I'm still finishing the book. So we'll one book at a time.
We'll get there.
Yeah, we'll
one
get
book
there.
at a time.
Yeah.
Well, when you're done with that book and it's time, come back and let's talk about it. I'd love to read it. For everybody else, if you've forgotten by some accident, it's The Weaver. There it is right there. And look, there's the link right there. That's all you got to do.
And get in touch with me after you read it.
Yes, for sure. And write a review, everybody.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to talk about? Do you want to ask me any questions? Otherwise, I'm going to wrap this thing up.
I'm curious about if you can tell me a little bit, because that's the most favorite thing to hear and talk about is how has The Weaver affected your own sense of self, and has it had any impact for you?
Yeah, I mean, it does, right? Like I said, you up the quality of those walks while I was reading. I read some at the house, but I did take some decent walks when I was out doing it. And You know, for me, I guess it reminded me more of like, I'm in this natural space. You know, it's easy just to tune out and go, I'm just walking by Chrissy Field or Golden Gate Park. And you don't slow down to go, oh my gosh, you know, there's the Palace of Fine Arts. Oh my gosh, there's the Golden Gate Bridge.
Mhm.
It's easy just for it to become mundane and part of your thing, and you don't appreciate what it is. Or maybe you don't take the walk and then you deny yourself these visual things and everything. So it just for me was a reminder that you have to balance life. You have to look at love in complex ways and appreciate that paint on the wall. And sometimes you just got to throw some new paint up. I don't mean a new partner necessarily, but you're going to have change regardless of what happens. And so appreciating that and turning it into a good thing when possible, you know, challenges. Like I'm going to get my cataract swapped out. I'm stoked because it's hard to see right now. You know, I can see it. I can kind of read. You'll see me like, okay, I'm reading it, you know. It's a good thing. It's a good thing that we have this technology. Yeah. It's a good thing that I know someone who does that and he can advise me on the best place to go. So yeah, that's kind of what
it helps you become more present from what I'm hearing.
Right. More
present exactly. To what you're surrounding, yourself, whatever you're experiencing. Yeah, that's exactly what.
Yeah. And also, like, I tend to dismiss I'll call it the supernatural. That way it's in a nice big bubble, you know. So whether it's God, whether it's, you know, the universe or whatever that thing is that's bigger than us, you know, my default is to go, meh, don't care, right? But then my science brain's like, we know there's more than one dimension. We know things can exist that we won't see, you know, and you see all these stories of these things happening over eons. And so again, it pulls on that part of me that just wants to snap back to here. And the better version of me is like that, you know?
Well, that's really one of the main themes, right, of the book is science, spirituality, how they connect, what's real, what's not real. It's all there. So you can read it literally and figuratively in many different ways.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let me wrap this thing up. Everybody, this is the Break It Down Show. If you subscribe, that'd be awesome. If you want to help, you can go to breakitdownshow.com. There's a PayPal link. You can put your own little subscription in there. All that money goes to me, and I put it right back into the show. It really helps take care of paying the bills. It gets me out of the house and on the road, buys me a tank of gas, all those things. That's why you want to support what I'm doing. It also will help me working on these bigger projects that I'm working on. So if you have time, Break It Down Show, or just go to the Amazon link, click that, and buy Allona's book or any other kind of the thing. Buy anything from Amazon to my link because I get a little tiny piece of money. That's another way to help, or just buy the shirts, whatever. Look, I appreciate all of you listening. Everybody, I'll see you again tomorrow. We got a bunch of great shows coming up. We're celebrating my birthday with Stephanie Powers and my buddy Scott Richards in a different show. All right, everybody, bye-bye.
Peter, you're great. Thank you